Good day. So, when driving on the highway, as you sometimes have to do, even though I try to avoid it, I have a lot of time to myself. And often I listen to podcasts or to music, and that's not necessarily like the best listening experience because of all. I mean, sure, I hear it, but because of all the wind noise and the car noise or whatever, it's not like amazing. And so I thought to myself, well, maybe I could share some of my thoughts about all the things I've seen or that I noticed while driving around, especially like the more remote areas of places. Like, obviously, I'm not going to tell you much about Istanbul. You can read all of that in a guidebook. But more the stories from the back roads. And don't take everything I say like word for word, right? I am driving. I would hope that at least some of my brain capacity is fixed on the writing, so maybe some thoughts might come out more bluntly than they should or than they are intended, or my language is not as impeccable as it should be. And in the recent weeks, or especially since I left Istanbul, I've noticed something relating to hobbies and leisure time, like time off, how the people here are enjoying it. And obviously, when I say the people here, I can only go from like my visual, what I see, right? So I don't know if the people I see are tourists who've rented a Turkish car or whatever. I can, I see the license plate, I see where the license plates are from. Maybe I hear them talk or whatever, but it's not like I did any interviews or anything, so this is just my interpretation. And what I've seen recently going along the Black Sea coast was that there's like a really big influx of camping, right? So there's a lot of people who go there to camp, who go there with tents, but especially like those camper caravan thingies that you put at the back of your car, which is like a bit of a different experience from back home in Europe, where you see a lot of the camper vans, right? Those thingies that are especially built for camping, have like an engine in the front, like those Fiat Ducato thingies or whatever. Whereas here, many of them are either in tents, which of course you also have, but many of them have those you attach to your regular car, and many of them, they're pretty unusual. I've rarely seen the models anywhere else. The ones you see, like the German Autobahn, like you have all the Dutch campers going south, whatever, are normally these giant beige-brown boxes, right? And the ones here are more like oval-shaped, round, and really small. Like, I would doubt that they can accommodate more than two people easily. So they can fit on every basic car. You don't need like a big, giant, strong car to pull them. And they just go around like the Black Sea coast or some of like the hilly green hinterlands. Many of them go to like, there's a lot of campgrounds along the coast, and also like a bit further in, but they would also go like wild camping. I've also seen it now in Cappadocia, that they would just turn down any dirt road and stand there for, I don't know, like a couple nights, or to go swimming obviously by the beach, and then maybe drive on. I've seen a couple which looked kind of stationary, where they had all kinds of tarps fixed to them, so that it looked more like something maybe that's going to be there for the whole summer or whatever. That's not as easily moved, but most of them are just, like at the back of a car, not even unhitched, still attached to the car, standing there at like a nice spot. The campsites that I saw were really interesting in that They didn't seem particularly nice. Like there was not a lot of shade. They were extremely crowded. Like one tent really close to the next one, without a lot of space in between them. I've checked one or two out myself because I thought of maybe spending the night there, and I didn't like them. Like the amenities they have, you know, the showers, the bathrooms, the camp rest areas where you go to eat or whatever, weren't very appealing. And as I drove on, especially like as I left the Black Sea coast, and you drive a bit south towards Ankara, but well before Ankara, uh, it becomes very, very rural, right? Very simple farmland, and many of the houses you see seem fairly old, like one-story houses with like the red shingle roofs, and they don't look particularly well maintained in most cases. They look rather simple. They look like they've maybe just recently gotten electricity, and I'm not sure about internet and running water, you know? And this is like 20 minutes away from the campsite. You see in the fields, like there's lots of watermelons growing, all kinds of melons, all kinds of vegetables, tomatoes, potatoes. What did I see? Cauliflower, things like that. And in many of the fields, like you'll see people working by hand, right? So not with any machines that get the potatoes out or whatever, but like some old farmer woman hunched down digging out potatoes. So it is like a very, I'll call it simple lifestyle, simple area, hard work, without a lot of reward, I would guess, by what the villages look like, what the roads look like, what the cars they drive there, you know, like rusty old beaters. Also, if they have machines, like what they look like, you know, like the tractors or the plows or whatever. And I found this to be really interesting, that in such close proximity, you'll have people go camping to like villages which, well, share a very, I would argue, similar lifestyle to people who are camping, right? I mean, because for at least as I imagine it for myself, you know, like the appeal of camping is to have like a more simple, more adventurous, more close to nature lifestyle, vacation, whatever, which means that in order to achieve that, you have to give up a lot of your nice, fancy, urban amenities, you know, like your fridge. I'm now going to talk like about more the tent lifestyle, not necessarily, you know, the camper van lifestyle, but your fridge, your TV, your full proper kitchen, washing machine, all this kind of stuff. And in order to have this more, yeah, like go to some beautiful, more natural places and experience life in a, I'd call it easier, more straightforward way, right? And it kind of seemed astonishing to me that you have those two things so close together, right? So people do this to get out of the city, I would argue, when right next to them, like a 10-minute car ride away, people live like this their whole lives, right? It's not like, I don't think there's any like mean-spirited thing going on, you know, like somebody in Istanbul or whatever is like, oh man, I really need to go spend the weekend in the forest, which is, after looking at Istanbul, humongous, just very understandable. But it just seems like a bit has like a bit of a bitter aftertaste that people would spend their vacation in a place where others probably are like, man, I wish I could get out of this village and move to Istanbul if I could afford the rent there or whatever. So this obviously brought me to the thought about how we enjoy leisure, free time, hobbies, leisure time. And as one might be aware, this is obviously the specialty of Horkheimer and Adorno, who talked a lot about this and who sort of tried and analyze how capitalism influences the way we spend our free time, right? How we enjoy our hobbies and how we sort of do all that. And obviously their main criticism is that capitalism sort of tries to make us into consumers, right? Sure, yeah. So, but more into passive consumers. So in a sense, like instead of going out and, I don't know, performing like a theater play with your friends, you're supposed to see the new Marvel movie, right? So you're sort of becoming like a more passive part in your leisure time, and a lot of it is focused on you purchasing something or you spending money, which is of course obviously the basic structure of capitalism, right? Without anybody buying shit, it wouldn't work. And so they're criticizing that this is sort of fundamentally changing the way we enjoy our free time. And now, obviously, one could argue that going out in nature, going camping, is the exact opposite of that, right? Because you are obviously like an active part, and there is, it's not like based around consumption, like maybe like a trip to Disneyland is or whatever. Which seems very plausible. Normally, I don't know, the way I know it, you go camping somewhere in the Alps, and then you go hiking, you go swimming in a lake, you buy your food and vegetables and cheese in like a local farmer's shop, you know, like pretty much the exact opposite of capitalist consumerism. It's like in German we have like the saying like Aktivurlaub, like active vacation, because you're actually, I don't know, doing stuff all the time, right? You're renting a mountain bike or you go wherever, you know, like all this kind of stuff, instead of just laying by the pool and consuming your all-inclusive cocktails. Nothing against that. Well, almost nothing against that. And then, well, I considered again this proximity between the, I would now call them less fortunate people having to work in the potato field all day, and the people camping like next door, going there, spending actually money to be there. While willfully also missing out on many of the comforts they actually have back home because they have become too boring, burdensome for them, I don't know. And about this big contrast or discrepancy between those two groups of people. And then I thought about the whole outdoor camping community, and at least like from my experience in Germany, what that often entails. Obviously, like all subcultures do have their own rituals, and in today's world, I guess all of them are tied into capitalist products, right? It doesn't matter if it's the tickets for your anti-capitalist punk concerts, or the band shirt you buy there, or whatever. And of course, camping, or especially like any outdoor activity, has that as well, right? So there's all these common stereotypes, like of the people going to Nepal with their fucking, I don't know, 600 euro, 1,000 euro, 2,000 euro jackets or boots or backpacks or whatever, and then hire like a Sherpa for like what, 50 euros a day to carry them up the mountain, and he's wearing like 5 euro fake Adidas sneakers, like. So it's like the consumption for many of those subcultures, or for almost all subcultures, has become such like an integral part of their functioning, of like that. Apart from being like a topic that you talk about, like, oh, have you seen the new 2024 North Face Gore-Tex windbreaker, whatever? Like, I'm sure the one from 2019 should also be okay, but like as a common shared value among people who take part in the subculture. And this is especially, I think, true for the outdoor things, right? Where you suddenly, this happens as a reflex, right? So you go out of your accustomed home, where you have your TV, your couch, your garage door opener, whatever, and you go away from that, and so suddenly, wait, how do you define yourself then? Not necessarily define, but what makes central aspects of your day suddenly worthwhile, right? Because those items, those things might have cost you like a lot of money. You might be proud of them, or they might actually just be very, very useful, like, or actually like bring you a lot of joy. This is not to say that you can't buy nice things. It's just critiquing the value we give these objects in our lives, or in this sense, like in our free time, right? If I buy like a new graphics card for my computer that's like 100% more capable than the old one, I will have nicer looking video games, and I will enjoy that, like there's and I will tell other people like, oh yeah, I got this new graphics card, whatever, it's amazing, like now I can see every single pixel so much more clearly, whatever. But especially like in the outdoor communities, to go get back to the whole camping thing, I think that's very prevalent, considering also like the levels of money you can spend, which is true in almost every hobby, even though I think in many hobbies there's not going to be a big difference at some point anymore, right? If I build a gaming computer that costs 6,000 euros and one that costs 10,000, will I actually notice a big difference? No. But then again, you have like a tent for 70 euros and you have like a tent for 700 euros, right? You have like hiking boots for 60 euros and you have hiking boots for like, I don't know, 500 euros. So there is like a very big price discrepancy. And as the Sherpa metaphor, or as the Sherpa example stereotype tells us, obviously you don't need any hiking boots at all if you're actually good at what you're doing. But since we're so accustomed in our daily lives to sort of measure ourselves or define ourselves against those items, those purchases that we make, we can't help but bring these things over into our leisure time, into our hobbies, into our free time, and that makes the whole thing like a little bit weirder for me. Right? If I compare this to the camping system in Germany, and you go to the Alps, all around the campsites in every Alpine Austrian village, there will be people profiting like majorly off of this, right? Every second house in that village is like a holiday rental, a hotel, a restaurant, what have you, like you don't have to go camping, right? There's you can also go spend 100 euros, 150 euros a night and stay like in a nice cottage or whatever. which is not the case like what I saw here in Turkey, right? So all around those is like poor farming villages, and they have like, I drove through some of them which hadn't even like one of those tiny shops where you buy like sweets or whatever. So these seem to be like very isolated things, right? People come here, I guess, from Istanbul, go camping and go home, right? There is not a lot of surrounding industry, economy. And that seems kind of strange for me, like considering especially that this, sure, it's like I guess still like a cheaper hobby than, I don't know, flying to whatever, Thailand and lying on the beach. Nevertheless, the people who do that here in Turkey at least have to have a significant difference in social standing compared to the people living in the surrounding areas. That it feels a bit awkward, I think. Recently, I came across another similar subculture, and that was one that is obviously very close to my heart, and it is like about the growing culture of like off-road motocross, motorcycling in India. Now, I've done lots of motorcycle trips myself in India, so I go there because I enjoy it immensely. For me, obviously, like it has a lot of the touristy aspects of like exotic food and culture and that it doesn't necessarily have for local people. But I had like similar sentiments, right? When you see a guy like in, I don't know, like some online forum, you know, talk about how he got the new KTM Duke 390 or whatever they have in India, and he's like now commuting to work through some bushlands instead of like the official road, like, you know, like taking like a shortcut somewhere on the outskirts of town, of a city. And then, you know, like you watch his video, and obviously like he's overtaking some old guy who is taking the same shortcut on like an old TBS 50cc moped, you know. And it's like, that's like, I think it's like a strange mix of hobby and, well, real life, I'd argue, you know. The people who, this old guy on the TBS, he's been probably taking that road for years, and it's very burdensome and cumbersome for him to do that, right? And he hates it, and he would wish that somebody in the government would build like a new road, right? And now there's this young kid who has like probably a good enough job to afford the KTM, and doing it for fun, or doing it like, not for fun, I mean he's commuting to work, right? But doing it in a way that for him feels like a hobby, so that he is posting about it on the internet. And this has for me like a similar taste of a weird mix between enjoying the very same thing where another person struggles or has a hard time. You could probably say the same for like things like rich people or people that are well off enough, going to like thrift stores, you know, secondhand stores, and trying to look for something I like to do very much myself, looking for like cool stuff, right? So it is something that is there to basically help people who struggle financially, or on the secondary style also like for sustainability. And then people who go there who are not necessarily in this financial situation, but because, I don't know, they enjoy it for various reasons. And then, of course, has the same kind of strange aftertaste, right? I'm not trying to gatekeep any hobbies at this point. I'm just sort of sharing an observation I found weird and similar, like to the obviously to the final point I'm trying to make is the consumerism that goes hand in hand with it, right? So the difference between the old guy on the moped and the young guy on the KTM is of course, the social interaction, right? He shares his posts, his experiences on the internet, and others are like, "Wow, so cool! I didn't know there was like a motocross community in India or whatever." And of course, he separates himself from the guy next to him in India who can't afford that through the things he buys, right? So he's got like a motocross helmet, he's got like a protector vest, he's got like the gloves, he's pimping his bike, he's wearing the Fox shirt, and like he looks cool doing it through the things he buys, similar to the thing on the campground, right? So you have like a nice fancy gas stove, you have like a cool new tent, you have like a comfortable sleeping bag, blah 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 blah, all this kind of stuff that you bought, that makes it obvious to everybody else that you're not a struggling farmer working in the fields, but that you are a tourist who is there as a luxury, as a vacation, as a treat, right? And this begs the question of like how much of our free time, of our leisure time, is actually defined by the things we buy in order to enjoy it. Obviously, there are hobbies that are extremely opposed to it, right? So, for example, if you look at playing chess, yeah. So a chessboard is like what? I don't know. Go to the flea market, get one for €5. You can play for the rest of your life. So this is like one of the. You can play it against everybody. There's like no fees. There's like no whatever. I mean, I'm sure there's people on the internet who try to change that, but that's not the core part of the game, I guess. And then, of course, there's hobbies like the whole camping thing, where you artificially buy a whole second home away from your home. And then people are like, "Oh, I'm going back to my first home, and now I need to think about where I store my camping home in my first home." So where it is defined a lot about the things you need to buy for it, right? So the sleeping bag you have defines like which temperatures you can sleep in. The tent defines on which rainy parts of the world you can visit, or whatever. You get what I mean? And this would then obviously be something worth analyzing further and seeing like, well, how can we maybe try and get our free time, our hobbies back from this definition through bought items? What could help us in doing so? And before, I guess I will answer that or give you my thoughts about that as a final question, as a final part. I was going to look at some of my own hobbies some more. Before I already mentioned video games, computer games, which is something like I like to do, similar to board games. And in recent years, capitalist masterminds have gone on more and more to follow like subscription-based platforms of commerce, right? So that there's a really interesting, important book called The End of Ownership, right? So at some point you won't own anything anymore, but just pay monthly fees, which has some pros, but mostly cons, obviously. And same is true for video games. There are nowadays like a lot of board games, which is also a thing I enjoy. some of them which can only be played once, like think of all the escape room thingies, like once you know the answer, it's gone. So which are like a lot more consumer goods than, for example, a game like chess, or there are games which are constantly putting out like bonus material, expansions, like where you basically have a concept, and I guess it's hard to prove it, right? But the creator of the game could already have like more brilliant ideas, but purposefully not put them in the base game, so that you have to pay like another 30 euros a year later when he's like, oh yeah, by the way, here's the new expansion. So this is also like a thing. And of course there are places like board game cafes where you can go. There's also some in Dresden, Neustadt, so you don't have to buy all the games, you can go and borrow them and play them, which is really cool, I think. But since I'm riding around the world on a motorcycle right now, I think the biggest hobby obviously is motorcycling. And here, of course, you have a very important feature that's maybe like more prevalent than in other hobbies, and that's like safety, right? So a 500 euro helmet, a 500 euro pair of pants is obviously more protective, or at least I would hope so in most cases, than a 50 euro helmet, right? I have to concentrate a little bit. And nevertheless, even apart from the safety aspect, of course, like I mentioned the example of the motocross guy before, right? So there is a lot of big brands, there's a lot of sponsorships going on, there is a lot of things going on that define, or that you define yourself with by buying a specific brand as opposed to another brand, right? It could show off that you're, I don't know, like wearing expert level gear, so you can sort of try and make you look like an expert. Or you could sort of show off that you're rich, that you don't care about money. I'm not too sure. And this, of course, starts with all the different brands, right? So you have, for example, motorcycles that are more expensive than other motorcycles, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff. And now I, for myself, like I've always been riding Honda motorcycles, which are, I think, the best, obviously. No, compared to their value, offer like a really good price point. So I have no interest in, I don't know, like, sure, would I like to ride a Ducati? Absolutely. Would I pay the money instead of, I don't know, going on another motorcycling trip and buying a Honda, like with the price difference, do something cool? Absolutely. I would not buy a Ducati for that reason, right? Or a BMW or whatever, even though I'm sure most of them are amazing bikes, right? Similar thing goes for gear. Like, in my traveling, I've never been like too big, valuing my own comfort too much. Sure, it's nice to have a pool somewhere where you can jump in with like a cold beer or whatever. By the end, it was almost, for me, it was always like traveling more, traveling longer, traveling to more remote places. And if that meant, well, I have to sleep in some cockroach-infested basement for a couple nights, sure, I'll take it. So I would like to think that this is, for example, one way in which I can try to sort of get my hobby of traveling, of motorcycling, a bit out of the claws of consumerism. I mean, obviously, as a tourist, I am a consumer, right? So I'm paying a hotel, or I'm paying a restaurant, or I'm paying whatever. I'm paying a gas station, sure. There's things like couch surfing that you can do, or there's things like camping out in the wild, that you can do to sort of like don't feel like an absolute tourist all the time. So I'm not too sure who, apart from the oil companies, profits a lot from my vacation. Maybe Booking.com, shout out, level 3 genius. It's funny that they call it genius, I don't know. And story for another day. So yeah, the final question remains, like, what are the things one could or should do to sort of avoid their hobby or their leisure time being taken over by capitalist consumerism in the sense of Adorno and Horkheimer. Prime example for that, of course, would be Funko Pops, but different topic. Of course, like, do things that are creative, right? Do things that you can do yourself. Do things that don't require any purchases. And if you find something you like, just be very wary of whatever people tell you. You know, like, I'm quite sure you don't need like €250 hiking boots to do most hikes, right? Sure, get comfortable shoes. I'm not saying, you know, like, don't ruin your health or whatever. But there's no amount of competition in that. And in the end, like, I've always found it kind of funny. Like, I'm a big fan of flip-flops, and I always go almost anywhere on flip-flops. Of all, like, the weird looks I've gotten, like somewhere in Indonesia or in Thailand, when you reach some mountaintop and there's like this German guy in his full North Face jacket and hiking shoes and Gore-Tex pants or whatever, and I'm just standing like next to him smoking a cigarette in my flip-flops, and he's like, you know, like visibly annoyed. So, you know, like, most of the times, I guess, try and figure out for yourself that a lot of these leisure time hobby purchases are in the end masking uncertainty, masking a weakness, masking that this person is not probably convinced of their own prowess in this field and thinks that through buying those things they can sort of prove to everybody, oh yeah, I'm like a real hiker because my hiking boots cost €500, you know? And of course that's how it often works in our very consumerist-oriented society, but that's clearly not how it should work. So one thing you can do against that is just not caring. Which is, of course, easier said than done if you want to fit into a subculture and people are like, what? You're walking around in these shoes? Whatever, are you stupid? And mine are so much better and blah, blah, blah. So it would be our job to steel ourselves against this kind of peer pressure, which is, I guess, always like a good idea. And try to stay true to our own style and to our own feelings, you know? I mean, if the €500 hiking boots improve your hiking fun so much more over the, I don't know, 30, €50 sneakers, I guess, go for it, right? I'm not saying that they're like inherently evil. I'm just saying like the way the subcultures themselves treat these items as sort of a uniform of your belonging to that subculture is what is to be criticized here. And that is something we should keep in mind whenever we venture out, especially whenever we venture out into our free time to enjoy our hard-earned time off, I guess. That's all I have to say for that. Have a great day.